Welcome back, True Seeker. Have you seen the latest details in the National Guardsmen shooting in Washington, D.C. of Wednesday, November 26, 2025? Because the media has come out and said that the shooter has been working with the CIA. And in other news, a pattern I've been talking about since 2013, pretty much nonstop. My first book, Letters and Numbers, which is books within books. Again, it's a 800-page book. There's literally a chapter on mass shootings in the news by the numbers, and the theme of that 100-page chapter is how they always have to encode the 44 in the national mass shooting story. And case in point, the head of the National Guard is Steve Nordhaus, and his birthday is October 13th. That means the shooting of the National Guardsmen, which are under his watch, came 44 days after his birthday. And as we've covered so many times, in this Kabbalistic practice of coding numbers into words, shooting equates to 44. And again, why would anyone ever look into the practice of coding numbers into words? Well, the answer is simple. This nation, from the beginning, has been controlled by Freemasons and other secret society types. If you look into Freemasonry, it's based in Kabbalah. Within Kabbalah, there's a lot of interesting studies. One is the practice of coding numbers into words. And again, in this practice of coding numbers into words, shooting equates to 44. If you're asking how do you turn those letters into those numbers to add up to that value, simply with the alphabetic order and numerology applied to each letter. For example, S is the 19th letter using the alphabetic order. A would be 1, B would be 2, C would be 3. By the time you get to S, it's 19. The numerology of 19 is 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1, so S breaks down to 1. H is the 8th letter. O, the 15th letter, is 1 plus 5 is 6. T, the 20th letter, is 2 plus 0 is 2, and so on and so forth. Shooting, 44, like gunfire, like mass shooter. When you run the alphabetic order in reverse, Z is 1 back to A is 26 with numerology. Wednesday is 44. Talked about this many a times. Notice the word military is 44. Remember the current Secretary of Defense, Hegseth, was picked when he was 44 years old. And it's reminiscent of Trump's first pick. The first time around he was in office, Mad Dog Mattis. Mad Dog equals 44, so does Mattis. But notice soldiers also 44, so is infantry, so is trooper. The list goes on. Officers 44. There's a lot of military words connected to 44. Now, about the head of the National Guard, notice what day he took office. He took office... Shoot, did I remove it from my screenshot? Well, I would encourage... Oh, here it is. It does say up here at the top. He became the 30th Chief of the National Guard Bureau on October 2nd, 2024. Okay? So if you measure from that day to the day of the shooting, exactly 60 weeks. Who did they blame the shooting on? Before they put out his name, they referred to him as Afghan National, which equates to 60. Remember, Donald Trump equals 60. The winner of the 60th election, only after his ex-wife fell down the stairs and died exactly 60 weeks into the first Jesuit Ignatian year, and then a million other 60 rituals followed, as we've kept track of. Of course, it's Donald Trump who deployed the National Guard to the streets of D.C., which has now resulted in this shooting by the Afghan National that has been working with the CIA. By the way, last night, the spelling of the shooter's name has changed. They added a letter to his name. So last night, I did show how the initial spelling equated to 107, like shooting, like military. That's no longer the case. The new spelling of his name has a gematria value of 67, like killer. But yeah, shooting suspect brought to U.S. due to prior work with government, including CIA. The suspect in the shooting of the two National Guard members was brought to the United States due to his prior work with the U.S. government, including CIA, as a member of a partner force in Kandahar, CIA Director John Ratcliffe said in a statement sent to CNN. Remember, the CIA has the Kryptos statue outside of its door, which encodes this information to letters and numbers. So the CIA is literally showing you at their building that they practice this code of letters and numbers. And do you recall that the Afghanistan government collapsed on August 15th, 2021, which is the Jesuit order's birthday, and it was their 487th birthday, which is the 93rd prime number, like how Afghanistan is the plus 93 international dialing code. So now you have this Afghan National brought over because of that collapse, who's been working with the CIA, and let's not forget the CIA was established September 18th, 1947, in a major Jesuit ritual, as we've covered a million times. But look at the two. Oh, hold on. Let me rewind. Did you see how old the suspects are that were shot? 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom and 24-year-old Andrew Wolf. What's 20 plus 24? Is it 44? Is it 44? Okay, I'm pretty sure it is. If I'm not mistaken, 60 is the 44th composite number too, just for the record. But look at the gematria of the people shot. Sarah Beckstrom and Andrew Wolf both equal 54, like Jesuit order. Like, again, how Afghanistan's government collapsed on the Jesuit order's birthday. Afghanistan, terrorism. Does that remind you of bin Laden, who was killed on his 54th day, being 54 years old? How about the ritual they just did with Mamdani 54 days after 9/11, exactly 54 weeks after he announced his campaign to run for mayor? Don't forget George W. Bush, the winner of the 54th election right before all these things went down. Don't forget Roddy Piper, born in 1954, who was in They Live, where Cable 54 is the enemy of the world, and he said that movie was a documentary, and he tweeted that out on the anniversary of the Jesuits being recognized by the Roman Catholic Church, only to die on July 31st, the anniversary of the Jesuit founder dying. Remember, the Jesuits, their headquarters is the Church of the Jesuit, Building 54. Their first university in the U.S. was founded by John Carroll, whose name equals 54 when he was 54 years old. That was Georgetown, which was established right before George Washington became recognized as the first president, when they moved the capital to the Jesuit stronghold, D.C., where this shooting happened. Don't forget, at their peak, the Jesuits had 54 universities in the U.S., and on and on and on. When Trump first announced he was running for president, it was 54 years and change after his Jesuit education began at Fordham. But yeah, Trump's now said he's going to deploy 500 more National Guardsmen to Washington, D.C., so this story is going to result in further militarization of the U.S. and its capital. And Trump also says he's now going to re-examine all green cards issued to people from 19 countries. 19 countries. 19 again. Remember, chaos equals 19. 19 hijackers on 9/11, mostly from Saudi Arabia, 19 years after King Fahd became the king. We just covered that ritual again in a major way just days ago. But how many times can we see the same patterns, the same rituals, and nobody catches on? And something that popped up in my feed, this Nick Shirley kid, this kid that's been promoted by the algorithm, gets to go to the White House, sit at the table with Trump. High school education, poor handle on grammar and logic, short attention span, but somehow viral sensation. When he goes on the streets of America, huge views. When I go on the streets of America, demonetized, shadow banned, channel deleted. Anyway, this just showed up in my feed, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this comment. Please keep these 2 National Guard soldiers' families in your prayers this Thanksgiving. I'm devastated to see this happen, and it just makes me sad to see how the political violence continues to happen in the United States. Be vigilant at all times, as you never know what might happen around you. He should be careful as a Mormon who interviewed Charlie Kirk the day he was assassinated by a Mormon. He could be the next pawn used by the Trump administration to serve as an excuse to further militarize and turn this country into a police surveillance state. I won't be surprised if it does happen. But this is the kind of response that yours truly's work needs to spread. 18,000 likes on this. The problem with this stuff, praying for the latest tragic story, it's not going to do a damn thing. What people need to do is spread information about how the government is manufacturing these tragedies to build their police surveillance state. And here's Nick Shirley, who goes around championing the guy who runs on the highest degree of the Church of Satan, MAGA, which isn't an accident. Again, Obama told us on the Church of Satan's 45th birthday that Trump would become number 45, with Trump in attendance that night at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, April 30th, 2011. But again, people need to understand that this is our government, the people at the top, like how this guy worked for the CIA. A reminder of Tim Osman, a.k.a. Osama. He worked for the CIA too. But again, just a reminder that this is how our government operates. The same patterns, the same rituals. Remember how 9/11 relates to Tisha B'Av, and that year the towers came down 44 days after Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, to remember the destruction of the two temples. But yeah, this stuff, it really is blatant when you know what you're looking at, and that's the problem. Just people haven't learned how to identify the routine patterns, and they just changed the headline. Yesterday they were saying at least 44 dead on the day of the shooting, 44 days after the head of the National Guard. This morning they updated it to at least 83 dead, and it was just there until it refreshed. Oh, now they've taken it to 94. Well, that's interesting. That's a reminder the World Trade Center is open on the 94th day of the year. So it counted from 83 to 94, but every last number they're hitting is symbolic. So, anyway. By the way, 35 Thursday totally in effect, like we teach you every week too. Thursday 35, Turkey 35, football 35. Dan Campbell got his 35th loss today for the Lions. Heartbreaker for Detroit again. Chiefs-Cowboys game starts with the interception at number 35, and so on and so forth. Again, you learn this knowledge, you'll never look at the world the same way again. So we'll leave it there for now, Truth Seeker.